Welcome back to Empress Goddess Presents, my loves. I'm your host with the most, the gorgeous goat, the sweet peach, Empress Goddess herself. Let's get back into some more of the secret teachings of all ages.
And a maiden, Adam and Eve, in holy wedlock. Sometimes a winged figure above transfixes the form of the card. The second form of the card portrays a youth with a female figure on either side, while the other bears a golden crown and is winged, while the on her head attired in the flowing robes of the Bacchante. The Fraternity of the Rose Cross. Who were the Rosicrucians? Were they an organization of profound thinkers rebelling against the inquisitional religious and philosophical limitations of their time? Or were they isolated transcendentalists, united only by the similarity of their viewpoints and deductions? Where was the House of the Holy Spirit, in which, according to their manifestos, they met once a year to plan the future activities of their order? Who was the mysterious person referred to as our illustrious father and brother CRC? Did those three letters actually stand for the words Christian Rosy Cross? Was Christian Rosenkreutz, the supposed author of Chemical Nuptials, the same person who with three others founded the Society of the Rose Cross? What relationship existed between Rosicrucianism and medieval Freemasonry? Why were the destinies of these two organizations so closely interwoven? Is the Brotherhood of the Rose Cross the much sought-after link connecting the Freemasonry of the Middle Ages with the symbolism and mysticism of antiquity? And are its secrets being perpetuated by modern Masonry? Did the original Rosicrucian order disintegrate in the latter part of the 18th century, or does the society still exist as an organization, maintaining the same secrecy for which it was originally famous? What was the true purpose for which the Brotherhood of the Rose Cross was formed? Were the Rosicrucians a religious and philosophic brotherhood, as they claimed to be, or were their avowed tenets a blind to conceal the true object of the fraternity, which possibly was the political control of Europe? These are some of the problems involved in the study of Rosicrucianism. There are four distinct theories regarding the Rosicrucian enigma. Each is the result of a careful consideration of the evidence by scholars who have spent their lives ransacking the archives of Hermetic lore. The conclusions reached demonstrate clearly the inadequacy of the records available concerning the genesis and early activities of the Brethren of the Rose Cross. The first postulate. It is assumed that the Rosicrucian order existed historically in accordance with the description of its foundation and subsequent activities published in its manifesto, the Fama Fraternitatis, which is believed to have been written in the year 1610, but apparently did not appear in print until 1614, although an earlier edition is suspected by some authorities. Intelligent consideration of the origin of Rosicrucianism requires a familiarity with the contents of the first and most important of its documents. The Fama Fraternitatis begins with a reminder to all the world of God's goodness and mercy, and it warns the intelligentsia that their egotism and covetousness cause them to follow after false prophets and to ignore the true knowledge which God in his goodness has revealed to them. Hence, a reformation is necessary, and God has raised up philosophers and sages for this purpose. In order to assist in bringing about the Reformation, a mysterious person called the highly illuminated Father CRC, a German by birth, descended of a noble family, but himself a poor man, instituted the secret society of the Rose Cross. CRC was placed in a cloister when only 5 years of age, but later becoming dissatisfied with its educational system, he associated himself with a brother of holy orders who was setting forth on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land. They started out together, but the brother died at Cyprus, and CRC continued alone to Damascus. Poor health prevented him from reaching Jerusalem, so he remained at Damascus, studying with the philosophers who dwelt there. While pursuing his studies, he heard of a group of mystics and Kabbalists abiding in the mystic Arabian city of Damcar. Giving up his desire to visit Jerusalem, he arranged with the Arabians for his transportation to Damcar. CRC was but 16 years of age when he arrived at Damcar. He was received as one who had been long expected, a comrade and a friend in philosophy, and was instructed in the secrets of the Arabian adepts. While there, CRC learned the Arabic tongue and translated the sacred book M into Latin. and upon returning to Europe he brought this important volume with him. After studying 3 years in Damcar, CRC departed for the city of Fez, where the Arabian magicians declared further information would be given him. At Fez he was instructed how to communicate with the elementary inhabitants, probably the nature spirits, and these disclosed to him many other great secrets of nature. While the philosophers in Fez were not so great as those in Damcar, the previous experiences of CRC enabled him to distinguish the true from the false, and thus add greatly to his store of knowledge. After 2 years in Fez, CRC sailed for Spain, carrying with him many treasures, among them rare plants and animals accumulated during his wanderings. He fondly hoped that the learned men of Europe would receive with gratitude the rare intellectual and material treasures which he had brought for their consideration. Instead, he encountered only ridicule, for the so-called wise were afraid to admit their previous ignorance, lest their prestige be impaired. At this point in the narrative is an interpolation stating that Paracelsus, while not a member of the Fraternity of the Rose Cross, had read the book M, and from a consideration of its contents, had secured information which made him the foremost physician of medieval Europe. Tired but not discouraged, as the result of the fruitlessness of his efforts, CRC returned to Germany, where he built a house in which he could quietly carry on his study and research. He also manufactured a number of rare scientific instruments for research purposes. While he could have made himself famous had he cared to commercialize his knowledge, he preferred the companionship of God to the esteem of men. After 5 years of retirement, he decided to renew his struggle for a reformation. Fundamentals of Kabbalistic Cosmogony. The Kabbalists conceive of the supreme deity as an incomprehensible principle, to be discovered only through the process of eliminating, in order, all its cognizable attributes. That which remains, when every knowable thing has been removed, is Ein Sof, the eternal state of being. Although indefinable, the Absolute permeates all space. Abstract to the degree of inconceivability, Ein Sof is the unconditioned state of all things. Substances, essences, and intelligences are manifested out of the inscrutability of Ein Sof, but the Absolute itself is without substance, essence, or intelligence. Ein Sof may be likened to a great field of rich earth, out of which rises a myriad of plants, each different in color, formation, and fragrance, yet each with its roots in the same dark loam, which, however, is unlike any of the forms nurtured by it. The plants are universes, gods, and man, all nourished by Ein Sof, and all with their source in one definitionless essence. All with their spirits, souls, and bodies fashioned from this essence, and doomed like the plant to return to the black ground. Ein Sof, the only immortal, whence they came. Ein Sof was referred to by the Kabbalists as the most ancient of all the ancients. It was always considered as sexless. Its symbol was a closed eye. While it may be truly said of Ein Sof that to define it is to defile it, the rabbis postulated certain theories regarding the manner in which Ein Sof projected creations out of itself, and they also assigned to this absolute not being certain symbols as being descriptive, in part at least, of its powers. The nature of Ein Sof they symbolized by a circle, itself emblematic of eternity. This hypothetical circle encloses a dimensionless area of incomprehensible life, and the circular boundary of this life is abstract and measureless infinity. According to this concept, God is not only a center, but also area. Centralization is the first step towards limitation. Therefore, centers which form in the substances of Ein Sof are finite, because they are predestined to dissolution back into the cause of themselves, while Ein Sof itself is infinite, because it is the ultimate condition of all things. The circular shape given to Ein Sof signifies that space is hypothetically enclosed within a great crystal-like globe, outside of which there is nothing, not even a vacuum. Within this globe, symbolic of Ein Sof, creation and dissolution take place. Every element and principle that will ever be used in the eternities of cosmic birth, growth, and decay is within the transparent substances of this intangible sphere. It is the cosmic egg, which is not broken till the great day be with us, which is the end of the cycle of necessity, when all things return to their ultimate cause. In the process of creation, the diffused life of Ein Sof retires from the circumference to the center of the circle and establishes a point, which is the first manifesting one, the primitive limitation of the all-pervading O. When the divine essence thus retires from the circular boundary to the center, it leaves behind the abyss, or as the Kabbalists term it, the great privation. Thus, in Ein Sof is established a twofold condition, where previously had existed but one. The first condition is the central point, the primitive objectified radiance of the eternal subjectified life. About this radiance is darkness caused by the deprivation of the life, which is drawn to the center to create the first point, or universal germ. The universal Ein Sof, therefore, no longer shines through space, but rather upon space from an established first point. Isaac Meyer describes the process as follows. The Ein Sof at first was filling all, and then made an absolute concentration into itself, which produced the abyss, deep or space, the Avir Kadmon, or primitive air, the Azoth. But this is not considered in the Kabbalah as a perfect void or vacuum, a perfectly empty space, but is thought of as the waters or crystalline chaotic sea, in which was a certain degree of light, inferior to that by which all the created worlds and hierarchies were made. See the Kabbalah. In the secret teachings of the Kabbalah, it is taught that man's body is enveloped in an ovoid of bubble-like iridescence, which is called the auric egg. This is the causal sphere of man. It bears the same relationship to man's physical body that the globe of Ein Sof bears to its created universes. In fact, this auric egg is the Ein Sof sphere of the entity called man. In reality, therefore, the supreme consciousness of man is in this aura, which extends in all directions and completely encircles his lower bodies. As the consciousness in the cosmic egg is withdrawn into a central point, which is then called God, the Supreme One, so the consciousness in the auric egg of man is concentrated, thereby causing the establishment of a point of consciousness, called the ego. As the universes in nature are formed from powers latent in the cosmic egg, so everything used by man in all his incarnations throughout the kingdoms of nature is drawn from the latent powers within his auric egg. Man never passes from this egg. It remains even after death. His births, deaths, and rebirths all take place within it, and it cannot be broken until the lesser day be with us, when mankind, like the universe, is liberated from the wheel of necessity. The Kabbalistic system of worlds. On the accompanying circular chart found in the PDF, the concentric rings represent diagrammatically the 40 rates of vibration, called by the Kabbalists spheres, which emanate from Ein Sof. The circle X1 is the outer boundary of space. It circumscribes the area of Ein Sof. The nature of Ein Sof itself is divided into 3 parts, represented by the spaces respectively between X1 and X2, X2 and X3, X3 and A1. Thus, X1 to X2, Ein, the vacuum of pure spirit. X2 to X3, Ein Sof, the limitless and boundless. X3 to A1, Ein Sof Or, the limitless light. It should be borne in mind that in the beginning, the supreme substance, Ein, alone permeated the area of the circle. The inner rings had not yet come into manifestation. As the divine essence concentrated itself, the rings X2 and X3 became apprehensible. For Ein Sof is a limitation of Ein, and Ein Sof or light, is a still greater limitation. Thus the nature of the Supreme One is considered to be threefold, and from this threefold nature, the powers and elements of creation were reflected into the abyss left by the motion of Ein Sof towards the center of itself. The continual motion of Ein Sof towards the center of itself resulted in the establishment of the dot in the circle. The dot was called God, as being the supreme individualization of the universal essence. Concerning this, the Zohar says, "When the concealed of the concealed wished to reveal himself, he first made a single point. The infinite was entirely unknown, and diffused no light before this luminous point violently broke through into vision. The name of this point is I Am, called by the Hebrews Ahaya. The Kabbalists gave many names to this dot. On this subject, Christian D. Ginsburg writes in substance, the dot is called the first crown, because it occupies the highest position. It is called the aged, because it is the first emanation. It is called the primordial or smooth point. It is called the white head, the long face, macroprosophus, and the inscrutable height, because it controls and governs all the other emanations. When the white shining point had appeared, it was called Kether, which means the crown, and out of it radiated 9 great globes, which arranged themselves in the form of a tree. These 9, together with the first crown, constituted the first system of Sephiroth. These 10 were the first limitation of 10 abstract points within the nature of Ein Sof itself. The power of Ein Sof did not descend into these globes, but rather was reflected upon them as the light of the sun is reflected upon the earth and planets. These 10 globes were called the shining sapphires, and it is believed by many rabbins that the word sapphire is the basis of the word Saphira, the singular of Sephiroth. The great area which had been privated by the withdrawal of Ein Sof into the central point, Kether, was now filled by 4 concentric globes called worlds or spheres, and the light of the 10 Sephiroth was reflected down through each of these in turn. This resulted in the establishment of 4 symbolical trees, each hearing the reflections of the 10 Sephirothic globes. The 40 spheres of creation out of Ein Sof are divided into 4 great world chains, as follows. A1 to A10, Atziluth, the boundless world of divine names. B1 to B10, Braya, the archangelic world of creations. C1 to C10, Yetzirah, the hierarchical world of formations. D1 to D10, Asaya, the elemental world of substances. Each of these worlds has 10 powers or spheres, a parent globe and 9 others, which come out of it as emanations, each globe born out of the one preceding. On the plane of Atziluth, A1 to A10, the highest and most divine of all the created worlds, the unmanifested Ein Sof established his first point or dot in the divine sea, the 3 spheres of X. This dot, A1, contains all creation within it. But in this first divine and uncontaminated state, the dot, or first manifested God, was not considered as a personality by the Kabbalists, but rather as a divine establishment or foundation. It was called the first crown, and from it issued the other circles of the Atziluthic world, A2, A3, A4, A5, A6, A7, A8, A9, and A10. In the 3 lower worlds, these circles are intelligences, planets, and elements, but in the first divine world they are called the rings of the sacred names. The first 10 great circles are globes of light which were manifested out of Ein Sof, and the 10 names of God assigned to them by the Kabbalists are as follows. From Ein Sof came A1, the first crown, and the name of the first power of God was Ahaya, which means I am that I am. From A1 came A2, the first wisdom, and the name of the second power of God was Jehovah, which means essence of being. From A2 came A3, the first understanding, and the name of the third power of God was Jehovah Elohim, which means God of gods. From A3 came A4, the first mercy, and the name of the fourth power of God was El, which means God the Creator. From A4 came A5, the first severity, and the name of the fifth power of God was Elohim Gibor, which means God the Potent. From A5 came A6, the first beauty, Loa Vadath, which means God the Strong. From A6 came A7, the first victory, and the name of the seventh power of God was Jehovah Tsaboeth, which means God of hosts. From A7 came A8, the first glory, and the name of the eighth power of God was Elohim Tsaboeth, which means Lord God of hosts. From A8 came A9, the first foundation, and the name of the ninth power of God was Shaddai, El Chai, which means omnipotent. From A9 came A10, the first kingdom, and the name of the 10th power of God was Adonai Melech, which means God. From A10 came B1, the second crown, and the world of Bride, second crown, and the world of Braya was established. The 10 emanations from A1 to A10 inclusive are called the foundations of all creations. The Kabbalists designate them the 10 roots of the tree of life. They are arranged in the form of a great human figure called Adam Kadmon, the man made from the fire mist, red dirt, the prototypic universal man. In the absoluthic world, the powers of God are most purely manifested. These 10 pure and perfect radiations do not descend into the lower worlds and take upon themselves forms, but are reflected upon the substances of the inferior spheres. From the first or absoluthic world, they are reflected into the second or Briatic world. As the reflection always lacks some of the brilliancy of the original image, so in the Briatic world, the 10 radiations lose part of their infinite power. A reflection is always like the thing reflected, but smaller and fainter. In the second world, B1 to B10, the order of the spheres is the name as in the absoluthic world, but the 10 circles of light are less brilliant and more tangible, and are here referred to as 10 great spirits, divine creatures who assist in the establishment of order and intelligence in the universe. As already noted, B1 is born out of A10 and is included within all the spheres superior to itself. Out of B1 are taken 9 globes, B2, B3, B4, B5, B6, B7, B8, B9, and B10, which constitute the world of Braya. These 10 subdivisions, however, are really the 10 absoluthic powers reflected into the substance of the Briatic world. B1 is the ruler of this world, for it contains all the other rings of its own world, and also the rings of the third and fourth worlds, C and D. In the world of Braya, the 10 spheres of light are called the archangels of Braya. Their order and powers are as follows. From A10 came B1, the second crown. It is called Metatron, the angel of the presence. From B1 came B2, the second wisdom. It is called Raziel, the herald of deity who revealed the mysteries of Kabbalah to Adam. From B2 came B3, the second understanding. It is called Safkiel, the contemplation of God. From B3 came B4, the second mercy. It is called Sadkiel, the justice of God. From B4 came B5, the second severity. It is called Samael, the severity of God. From B5 came B6, the second beauty. It is called Michael, like unto God. From B6 came B7, the second victory. It is called Hanil, the grace of God. From B7 came B8, the second glory. It is called Raphael, the divine physician. From B8 came B9, the second foundation. It is called Gabriel, the man God. From B9 came B10, the second kingdom. It is called Sandalphon, the Messiahs. From B10 came C1, the third crown, and the world of Yetzirah was established. The 10 archangels of Braya are conceived to be 10 great spiritual beings, whose duty is to manifest the 10 powers of the great name of God existent in the absoluthic world, which surrounds and interpenetrates the entire world of creation. All things manifesting in the lower worlds exist first in the intangible rings of the upper spheres, so that creation is, in truth, the process of making tangible the intangible by extending the intangible into various vibratory rates. The 10 globes of Briatic power, while themselves reflections, are mirrored downward into the third or Yetziratic world, where, still more limited in their expression, they become the spiritual and invisible zodiac, which is behind the visible band of constellations. In this third world, the 10 globes of the original absoluthic world are greatly limited and dimmed, but they are still infinitely powerful in comparison with a state of substance in which man dwells. In the third world, C1 to C10, the globes become hierarchies of celestial creatures, called the choirs of Yetzirah. Here again all are included within the ring C1, the power which controls the Yetziratic world, and which includes within itself and controls the entire world D. The order of the globes and the names of the hierarchies composing them are as follows. From B10 came C1, the third crown. The hierarchy is the cherubim, Chayoth HaKadosh, the holy animals. From C1 came C2, the third wisdom. The hierarchy is the cherubim, Orphanim, the wheels. From C2 came C3, the third understanding. The hierarchy is the thrones, Aralim, the mighty ones. From C3 came C4, the third mercy. The hierarchy is the dominations, Chashmalim, the brilliant ones. From C4 came C5, the third severity. The hierarchy is the powers, Seraphim, the flaming serpents. From C5 came C6, the third beauty. The hierarchy is the virtues, Melachim, the kings. From C6 came C7, the third victory. The hierarchy is the principalities, Elohim, the gods. From C7 came C8, the third glory. The hierarchy is the archangels, Ben Elohim, the sons of God. From C8 came C9, the third foundation. The hierarchy is the angels, cherubim, the seat of the sons. From C9 came C10, the third kingdom. The hierarchy is humanity, the Ashim, the souls of just men. From C10 came D1, the fourth crown, and the world of Asaya was established. From the Yetziratic world, the light of the 10 spheres is reflected into the world of Asaya, the lowest of the 4. The 10 globes of the original Atsaluthic world here take upon themselves forms of physical matter, and the sidereal system is the result. The world of Asaya, or the elemental world of substance, is the one into which humanity descended at the time of Adam's fall. The Garden of Eden is the 3 upper worlds, and for his sins, man was forced into the sphere of substance, and assumed coats of skin, bodies. All of the spiritual forces of the upper worlds, A, B, C, when they strike against the elements of the lower world, D, are distorted and perverted, resulting in the creation of hierarchies of demons to correspond with the good spirits in each of the higher worlds. In all the ancient mysteries, matter was regarded as the source of all evil, and spirit the source of all good, for matter inhibits and limits, often so clogging the inner perceptions that man is unable to recognize his own divine potentialities. Since matter thus prevents humanity from claiming its birthright, it is called the adversary, the power of evil. The 4th world, D, is the world of solar systems, comprising not only the one of which the Earth is a part, but all the solar systems in the universe. Opinions differ as to the arrangement of the globes of this last world, D1 to D10 inclusive. The ruler of the 4th world is D1, called by some the fiery heaven, by others the primum mobile, or the first motion. From this whirling fire emanates the material starry zodiac, D2, in contradistinction to the invisible spiritual zodiac of the Yetziratic world. From the zodiac D2 are differentiated the spheres of the planets in concatenate order. The 10 spheres of the world of Asaya are as follows. From C10 came D1, the 4th crown, Rashith ha-Galagalam, the primum mobile, the fiery mist which is the beginning of the material universe. From D1 came D2, the 4th wisdom, Masloth, the zodiac, the firmament of the fixed stars. From D2 came D3, the 4th understanding, Shabbathai, the sphere of Saturn. From D3 came D4, the 4th mercy, Zedeg, the sphere of Jupiter. From D4 came D5, the 4th severity, Madim, the sphere of Mars. From D5 came D6, the 4th beauty, Shemesh, the sphere of the sun. From D6 came D7, the 4th victory, Noga, the sphere of Venus. From D7 came D8, the 4th glory, Kokab, the sphere of Mercury. From D8 came D9, the 4th foundation, Lavana, the sphere of the moon. From D9 came D10, the 4th kingdom, Cholam Yozadoth, the sphere of the 4 elements. By inserting a sphere, which he calls the Empyrean, before the prima mobile, Kircher moves each of the other spheres down 1, resulting in the elimination of the sphere of the elements, and making D10 the sphere of the moon. In the world of Asaya are to be found the demons and tempters. These are likewise reflections of the 10 great globes of Atsaluth, but because of the distortion of the images resulting from the base substances of the world of Asaya upon which they are reflected, they become evil creatures, called shells by the Kabbalists. There are 10 hierarchies of these demons to correlate with the 10 hierarchies of good spirits composing the Yetziratic world. There are also 10 archdemons, corresponding to the 10 archangels of Braya. The black magicians use these inverted spirits in their efforts to attain their nefarious ends, but in time the demon destroys those who bind themselves to it. The 10 orders of demons and the 10 archdemons of the world of Asaya are as follows. D1, the evil crown. The hierarchy is called Thaumiel, the doubles of God, the two-headed. The archdemons are Satan and Moloch. From D1 came D2, the evil wisdom. The hierarchy is called Chigidiel, those who obstruct. The archdemon is Adam Belial. From D2 came D3, the evil understanding. The hierarchy is called Setheriel, the concealment of God. The archdemon is Lucifuge. From D3 came D4, the evil mercy. The hierarchy is called Gamchikoth, the disturber of things. The archdemon is Astaroth. From D4 came D5, the evil severity. The hierarchy is called Golab, incendiarism and burning. The archdemon is Asmodeus. From D5 came D6, the evil beauty. The hierarchy is called Togarini, the wranglers. The archdemon is Belphegor. From D6 came D7, the evil victory. The hierarchy is called Harab Sarap, the dispensing raven. The archdemon is Baal Shannon. From D7 came D8, the evil glory. The hierarchy is called Samael, the embroiler. The archdemon is Adremelech. From D8 came D9, the evil foundation. The hierarchy is called Gamaliel, the obscene. The archdemon is Lilith. From D9 came D10, the evil kingdom. The hierarchy is called Nahamoth, the impure. The archdemon is Nahima. The Kabbalists declare that the world's intelligences and hierarchies were established according to the vision of Ezekiel. By the man of Ezekiel's vision is symbolized the world of Atziluth, by the throne the world of Briah, by the firmament the world of Yetzirah, and by the living creatures the world of Asaya. These spheres are the wheels within wheels of the prophet. The Kabbalists next established a human figure in each of the 4 worlds. A1 was the head and A10 the feet of the man of Atziluth. B1 was the head and B10 the feet of the man of Briah. C1 was the head and C10 the feet of the man of Yetzirah. D1 was the head and D10 the feet of the man of Asaya. These 4 are called the world men. They are considered androgynous and are the prototypes of humanity. The human body, like that of the universe, is considered to be a material expression of 10 globes or spheres of light. Therefore, man is called the microcosm, the little world, built in the image of the great world of which he is a part. The Kabbalists also established a mysterious universal man with his head at A1 and his feet at D10. This is probably the secret significance of the great figure of Nebuchadnezzar's dream, with its head in the world of Atziluth, its arms and hands in the world of Briah, its generative system in the world of Yetzirah, and its legs and feet in the world of Asaya. This is the grand man of the Zohar, of whom Eliphas Levi writes, "It is not less astonishing to observe at the beginning of the Zohar the profundity of its notions and the sublime simplicity of its images. It is said as follows: the science of equilibrium is the key of occult science. Unbalanced forces perish in the void. So passed the kings of the elder world, the princes of the giants. They have fallen like trees without roots, and their place is found no more. Through the conflict of unbalanced forces, the devastated earth was void and formless, until the Spirit of God made for itself a place in heaven and reduced the mass of...
Hey, love. I already knew you was out there in the clouds, baby. How you doing tonight, love?
All the aspirations of nature were directed then towards unity of form, towards the living synthesis of equilibrated forces. The face of God, crowned with light, rose over the vast sea and was reflected in the waters thereof. His 2 eyes were manifested, radiating with splendor, darting 2 beams of light which crossed with those of the reflection. The brow of God and his eyes formed a triangle in heaven, and its reflection formed a second triangle in the waters. So was revealed the number 6, being that of universal creation. The text, which would be unintelligible in a literal version, is translated here by way of interpretation. The author makes it plain that the human form which he ascribes to deity is only an image of his meaning, and that God is beyond expression by human thought or representation by any figure. Pascal said that God is a circle, of which the center is everywhere and the circumference nowhere. But how is one to imagine a circle apart from its circumference? The Zohar adopts the antithesis of this paradoxical image, and in respect of the circle of Pascal, would say rather that the circumference is everywhere, while that which is nowhere is the center. It is, however, to a balance, and not to a circle, that it compares the universal equilibrium of things. It affirms that equilibrium is everywhere, and so also is the central point where the balance hangs in suspension. We find that the Zohar is thus more forcible and more profound than Pascal. The Zohar is a genesis of light. The Sefer Yetzirah is a ladder of truth. Therein are expounded the 32 absolute symbols of speech, being numbers and letters. Each letter produces a number.
Ghetto child, you just sit back and observe, don't you, my love?
Idea and a form, so that mathematics are applicable to forms and ideas, even as to numbers, in virtue of an exact proportion and a perfect correspondence. By the science of the Sefer Yetzirah, the human mind is rooted in truth and in reason. It accounts for all progress possible to intelligence by means of the evolution of numbers. Thus does the Zohar represent absolute truth, while the Sefer Yetzirah furnishes the method of its acquisition, its discernment, and application. History of magic. By placing man himself at the point D10, his true constitution is revealed. He exists upon 4 worlds, only one of which is visible. It is then made evident that his parts and members upon the material plane are, by analogy, hierarchies and intelligences in the higher worlds. Here again the law of interpenetration is evidenced. Although within man is the entire universe, the 43 spheres interpenetrating D10, he is ignorant of its existence, because he cannot exercise control over that which is superior to or greater than himself. Nevertheless, all these higher spheres exercise control over him, as his functions and activities demonstrate. If they did not, he would be an inert mass of substance.
Down here.
Death is merely the result of deflecting the life impulses of the higher rings away from the lower body. The control of the transubstantial rings over their own material reflection is called life, and the spirit of man is, in reality, a name given to this great host of intelligences, which are focused upon substance through a point called the ego, established in the midst of themselves. X1 is the outside boundary of the human auric egg, and the entire diagram becomes a cross-section of the constitution of man, or a cross-section of the cosmic constitution if correlated with the universe. By the secret culture of the Kabbalistic school, man is taught how to climb the rings, unfold his consciousness, until at last he returns to Ein Sof. The process by which this is accomplished is called the 50 Gates of Light. Kircher, the Jesuit Kabbalist, declares that Moses passed through 49 of the gates, but that Christ alone passed the 50th gate. To the 3rd edition of the Sefer Yetzirah translated from the Hebrew by Wynne Westcott are appended the 50 gates of intelligence emanating from the Bina, the 2nd Sephirah. The source of this information is Kircher's Oedipus Egypticus. The gates are divided into 6 orders, of which the first 4 have each 10 subdivisions, the 5th 9, and the 6th only 1. The first order of gates is termed elementary, and its divisions are as follows. 1. Chaos, Heil, the first matter. 2. Formless, void, lifeless. 3. The abyss. 4. Origin of the elements. 5. Earth, no seed germs. 6. Water. 7. Air. 8. Fire. 9. Differentiation of qualities. 10. Mixture and combination. The second order of gates is termed Decad of Evolution, and its divisions are as follows. 11. Minerals differentiate. 12. Vegetable principles appear. 13. Seeds germinate in moisture. 14. Herbs and trees. 15. Fructification in vegetable life. 16. Origin of low forms of animal life. 17. Insects and reptiles appear. 18. Fishes, vertebrate life in the waters. 19. Birds, vertebrate life in the air. 20. Quadrupeds, vertebrate earth animals. The third order of gates is termed Decad of Humanity, and its divisions are as follows. 21. Appearance of man. 22. Material human body. 23. Human soul conferred. 24. Mystery of Adam and Eve. 25. Complete man as the microcosm. 26. Gift of 5 human faces acting exteriorly. 27. Gift of 5 powers to the soul. 28. Adam Kadmon, the heavenly man. 29. Angelic beings. 30. Man in the image of God. The fourth order of gates is termed World of Spheres, and its divisions are as follows. 31. The heaven of the moon. 32. The heaven of Mercury. 33. The heaven of Venus. 34. The heaven of the sun. 35. The heaven of Mars. 36. The heaven of Jupiter. 37. The heaven of Saturn. 38. The firmament. 39. The primum mobile. 40. The Empyrean heaven. The fifth order of gates is termed the angelic world, and its divisions are as follows. 41. Ashim, sons of fire. 42. Orphanim, cherubim. 43. Aralim, thrones. 44. Chashmalim, dominions. 45. Seraphim, virtues. 46. Melachim, powers. 47. Elohim, principalities. 48. Ben Elohim, angels. 49. Cherubim, archangels. The order of the angels is a matter of controversy, the arrangement above differing from that accepted in other sections of this volume. The rabbins disagree fundamentally as to the proper sequence of the angelic names. The sixth order is termed the archetype, and consists of but one gate, 50. God, Ein Sof, he whom no mortal eye hath seen. The 50th gate leads from creation into the creative principle, and he who passes through it returns into the unlimited and undifferentiated condition of all. The 50 gates reveal a certain evolutionary process, and it was declared by the rabbins that he who would attain to the highest degree of understanding must pass sequentially through all of these orders of life, each of which constituted a gate in that the spirit, passing from the lower to the higher, found in each more responsive organism new avenues of self-expression.
Right.
The Tree of the Sephiroth. The Tree of the Sephiroth may be considered an invaluable compendium of the secret philosophy, which originally was the spirit and soul of Chassidism. The Kabbalistic keys to the creation of man. Henry Stevens, in A World of Wonders, published in 1607, mentions a monk of St. Anthony, who declared that while in Jerusalem the patriarch of that city had shown him not only one of the ribs of the Word made flesh, and some rays from the Star of Bethlehem, but also the snout of a seraph, a fingernail of a cherub, the horns of Moses, and a casket containing the breath of Christ. To a people believing implicitly in a seraph sufficiently tangible to have its proboscis preserved, the more profound issues of Judaistic philosophy must necessarily be incomprehensible. Nor is it difficult to imagine the reaction taking place in the mind of some ancient sage should he hear that a cherub, which according to St. Augustine signifies the evangelists, according to Philo Judaeus, the outermost circumference of the entire heavens, and according to several of the church fathers, the wisdom of God, had sprouted fingernails. The hopeless confusion of divine principles with the allegorical figures created to represent them to the limited faculties of the uninitiated has resulted in the most atrocious misconceptions of spiritual truths. Concepts well nigh as preposterous as these, however, still stand as adamantine barriers to a true understanding of Old and New Testament symbolism. For until man disentangles his reasoning powers from the web of venerated absurdities in which his mind has lain ensnared for centuries, how can truth ever be discovered? The Old Testament, especially the Pentateuch, contains not only the traditional account of the creation of the world and of man, but also locked within it the secrets of the Egyptian initiators of the Moses concerning the genesis of the God-man, the initiate, and the mystery of his rebirth through philosophy. While the lawgiver of Israel is known to have compiled several works other than those generally attributed to him, the writings now commonly circulated as the purported 6th and 7th books of Moses are in reality spurious treatises on black magic foisted on the credulous during the Middle Ages. Out of the hundreds of millions of pious and thoughtful students of Holy Writ, it is almost inconceivable that but a mere handful have sensed the sublimity of the esoteric teachings of Sot, the Jewish mysteries of Adonai. Yet familiarity with the three Kabbalistical processes termed gematria, notarikon, and temura makes possible the discovery of many of the profoundest truths of ancient Jewish superphysics. By gematria is meant not only the exchange of letters for their numerical equivalents, but also the method of determining by an analysis of its measurements the mystic purpose for which a building or other object was constructed. S. L. McGregor Mathers, in the Kabbalah Unveiled, gives this example of the application of gematria. Thus also the passage, Genesis 18:2, Vehena Shalisha, and lo, 3 men, equals in numerical value, Elo Michael Gabriel ve Raphael. These are Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael. For each phrase equals 701. Assuming the sides of a scalene to be 11, 9, and 6 inches, a triangle of such dimensions would then be an appropriate symbol of Jehovah, for the sum of its 3 sides would be 26, the numerical value of the Hebrew word IHVH. Gematria also includes the system of discovering the arcane meaning of a word by analyzing the size and arrangement of the strokes employed in the formation of its various letters. Gematria was employed by the Greeks as well as the Jews. The books of the New Testament, particularly those attributed to St. John, contain many examples of its use. Nicephorus Callistus declared the Gospel according to St. John to have been discovered in a cavern under the temple at Jerusalem, the volume having been secreted long anterior to the Christian era. The existence of interpolated material in the fourth Gospel substantiates the belief that the work was originally written without any specific reference to the man Jesus, the statements therein accredited to him being originally mystical discourses delivered by the personification of the universal mind. The remaining Johannine writings, the epistles and the apocalypse, are enshrouded by a similar veil of mystery. By notarikon, each letter of a word may become the initial character of a new word. Thus, from Brashith, the first word in the book of Genesis, are extracted 6 words which mean that, in the beginning, the Elohim saw that Israel would accept the law. Mr. McGregor Mathers also gives 6 additional examples of notarikon formed from the above word by Solomon Meyer ben Moses, a medieval Kabbalist. From the famous acrostic ascribed to the Erythraean Sibyl, St. Augustine derived a word which by notarikon was expanded into the phrase, Jesus Christ, Son of God, Savior. By another use of notarikon, directly the reverse of the first, the initial, last, or middle letters of the words of a sentence may be joined together to form a new word or words. For example, the name Amen may be extracted from the Lord is the faithful King. Because they had embodied these cryptic devices in their sacred writings, the ancient priests admonished their disciples never to translate, edit, or rewrite the contents of the sacred books. Under the general heading of Temura, several systems may be grouped and explained in which various letters are substituted for other letters, according to prearranged tables or certain mathematical arrangements of letters, regular or irregular. Thus, the alphabet may be broken into 2 equal parts and written in horizontal lines, so that the letters of the lower row can be exchanged for those of the upper row, or vice versa. By this procedure, the letters of the word kuzu may be exchanged for those of IHVH, the tetragrammaton. In another form of Temura, the letters are merely rearranged. Temura may consist of a simple anagram, as in the English word live, which reversed becomes evil. The various systems of Temura are among the most complicated and profound devices of the ancient rabbins. Among theological scholars, there is a growing conviction that the hitherto accepted translations of the scriptural writings do not adequately express the spirit of the original documents. After the first copy of the Book of God, writes H.P. Blavatsky, has been edited and launched on the world by Hilkiah, this copy disappears, and Ezra has to make a new Bible, which Judas Maccabeus finishes. When it was copied from the horned letters into square letters, it was corrupted beyond recognition. The Masorah completed the work of destruction. Finally, we have a text not 900 years old, abounding with omissions, interpolations, and premeditated perversions. See Isis Unveiled. Professor Crawford Howell Toy of Harvard notes, manuscripts were copied and recopied by scribes, who not only sometimes made errors in letters and words, but permitted themselves to introduce new material into the text, or to combine in one manuscript, without mark of division, writings composed by different men. Instances of these sorts of procedure are found especially in Micah and Jeremiah, and the groups of prophecies which go under the names of Isaiah and Zechariah. See Judaism and Christianity. Does the mutilated condition of the Holy Bible, in part accidental, represent nonetheless a definite effort to confuse the uninitiated reader and thus better conceal the secrets of the Jewish Tannaim? Never has the Christian world been in possession of those hidden scrolls which contain the secret doctrine of Israel. And if the Kabbalists were correct in their assumption that the lost books of the Mosaic mysteries have been woven into the fabric of the Torah, then the scriptures are veritably books within books. In rabbinical circles, the opinion is prevalent that Christendom never has understood the Old Testament and probably never will. In fact, the feeling exists, in some quarters at least, that the Old Testament is the exclusive possession of the Jewish faith. Also that Christianity, after its unrelenting persecution of the Jew, takes unwarranted liberties when it includes strictly Jewish writings in its sacred canon. But as noted by one rabbi, if Christianity must use the Jewish scriptures, it should at least strive to do so with some degree of intelligence. In the opening chapter of Genesis, it is stated that after creating light and separating it from darkness, the 7 Elohim divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. Having thus established the inferior universe in perfect accord with the esoteric teachings of the Hindu, Egyptian, and Greek mysteries, the Elohim next turned their attention to the production of flora and fauna, and lastly man. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And God blessed them. And God said unto them, "Be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth." Consider in thoughtful silence the startling use of pronouns in the above extract, from the most perfect example of English literature. When the plural and androgynous Hebrew word Elohim was translated into the singular and sexless word God, the opening chapters of Genesis were rendered comparatively meaningless. It may have been feared that had the word been correctly translated as the male and female creative agencies, the Christians would have been justly accused of worshipping a plurality of gods in the face of their repeated claims to monotheism. The plural form of the pronouns us and our reveals unmistakably, however, the pantheistic nature of divinity. Further, the androgynous constitution of the Elohim, God, is disclosed in the next verse, where he, referring to God, is said to have created man in his own image, male and female. Or more properly, as the division of the sexes had not yet taken place, male-female. This is a death blow to the time-honored concept that God is a masculine potency, as portrayed by Michelangelo on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel.
There you go, the bomb.
The Elohim then order these androgynous beings to be fruitful. Note that neither the masculine nor the feminine principle as yet existed in a separate state. And lastly, note the word replenish. The prefix re denotes back to an original or former state or position, or repetition or restoration. See Webster's International Dictionary, 1926. This definite reference to a humanity existing prior to the creation of man described in Genesis must be evident to the most casual reader of Scripture. An examination of Bible dictionaries, encyclopedias, and commentaries discloses the plural form of the word Elohim to be beyond the comprehension of their respected authors and editors. The new Schaff-Herzog Encyclopedia of Religious Knowledge thus sums up the controversy over the plural form of the word Elohim. Does it now, or did it originally, signify plurality of divine being? A dictionary of the Bible, edited by James Hastings, contains the following conclusion, which echoes the sentiments of more critical etymologists of the Bible. The use of the plural Elohim is also difficult to explain. Dr. Havernick considers the plural form Elohim to signify the abundance and super-richness existing in the divine being. His statement, which appears in the Popular and Critical Bible Encyclopedia, is representative of the efforts made to circumvent this extremely damaging word. The International Standard Bible Dictionary considers the explanations offered by modern theologians, of which Dr. Havernix is a fair example, to be too ingenious to have been conceived by the early Hebrews, and maintains that the word represents the survival of a polytheistic stage of Semitic thought. The Jewish Encyclopedia supports the latter assumption with the following concise statement. As far as epigraphic material, traditions, and folklore throw light on the question, the Semites are shown to be of polytheistic leanings. Various schools of philosophy, both Jewish and Gentile, have offered explanations erudite and otherwise of the identity of Adam. In this primordial man, the Neoplatonists recognized the Platonic idea of humanity, the archetype or pattern of the genus Homo. Philo-Judaeus considered Adam to represent the human mind, which could understand, and hence give names to, the creatures about it, but could not comprehend, and hence left nameless, the mystery of its own nature. Adam was also likened to the Pythagorean monad, which by virtue of its state of perfect unity could dwell in the Edenic sphere. When through a process akin to fission the monad became the duad, the proper symbol of discord and delusion, the creature thus formed was exiled from its celestial home. Thus the twofold man was driven from the paradise belonging to the undivided creation, and cherubim and a flaming sword were placed on guard at the gates of the causal world. Consequently, only after the re-establishment of unity within himself can man regain his primal spiritual state. According to the Isarim, the secret doctrine of Israel taught the existence of 4 Adams, each dwelling in one of the 4 Kabbalistic worlds. The first, or heavenly Adam, dwelt alone in the Atsaluthic sphere, and within his nature existed all spiritual and material potentialities. The second Adam resided in the sphere of Braya. Like the first Adam, this being was androgynous, and the 10th division of its body, its heel Malkuth, corresponded to the Church of Israel, that shall bruise the serpent's head. The third Adam, likewise androgynous, was clothed in a body of light, and abode in the sphere of Yetzirah. The fourth Adam was merely the third Adam after the fall into the sphere of Asaya, at which time the spiritual man took upon himself the animal shell or coat of skins. The fourth Adam was still considered as a single individual, though division had taken place within his nature, and 2 shells or physical bodies existed, in one of which was incarnated the masculine, and in the other the feminine potency. For further details, consult Isaac Meyer. The universal nature of Adam is revealed in the various accounts concerning the substances of which he was formed. It was originally ordained that the dirt to be used in fashioning him was to be derived from the 7 worlds. As these planes, however, refused to give of their substances, the Creator wrenched from them by force the elements to be employed in the Adamic constitution. St. Augustine discovered a notaricun in the name of Adam. He showed that the 4 letters, Adam, are the first letters of the 4 words Anatoli, Dissus, Arctos, Mesembria, the Greek names for the 4 corners of the world. The same author also sees in Adam a prototype of Christ, for he writes, Adam sleeps that Eve may be formed. Christ dies that the church may be formed. While Adam sleeps, Eve is formed from his side. When Christ is dead, his side is smitten with a spear, that there flow forth sacraments to form the church. Adam himself was the figure of him that was to come. In his recent work, Judaism, George Foot Moore thus describes the proportions of the Adamic man. He was a huge mass that filled the whole world to all points of the compass. The dust of which his body was formed was gathered from every part of the world, or from the site of the future altar. Of greater interest is the notion that man was created androgynous, because it is probably a bit of foreign lore adapted to the first parengenesis. R. Samuel Bar Naaman, 3rd century, said, when God created Adam, he created him facing both ways. Then he sawed him in 2 and made 2 backs, 1 for each figure. The Zohar holds the concept of 2 Adams, the first a divine being, who stepping forth from the highest original darkness, created the second or earthly Adam in his own image. The higher or celestial man was the causal sphere, with its divine potencies and potentialities considered as a gigantic personality. Its members, according to the Gnostics, being the basic elements of existence. This Adam may have been symbolized as facing both ways to signify that with one face it looked upon the proximate cause of itself, and with the other face looked upon the vast sea of cosmos, into which it was to be immersed. Philosophically, Adam may be regarded as representative of the full spiritual nature of man, androgynous and not subject to decay. Of this fuller nature, the mortal man has little comprehension. Just as spirit contains matter within itself, and is both the source and ultimate of the state denominated matter, so Eve represents the lower or mortal portion that is taken out of, or has temporal existence in, the greater and fuller spiritual creation. Being representative of the inferior part of the individual, Eve is the temptress, who, conspiring with the serpent of mortal knowledge, caused Adam to sink into a trance-like condition, in which he was unconscious of his own higher self. When Adam seemingly awoke, he actually sank into sleep, for he no longer was in the spirit but in the body, division having taken place within him. The true Adam rested in paradise, while his lesser part incarnated in a material organism, Eve, and wandered in the darkness of mortal existence. The followers of Mohammed apparently sensed more accurately than the uninitiated of other sects the true mystic import of paradise. For they realized that prior to his fall, the dwelling place of man was not in a physical garden, in any particular part of the earth, but rather in a higher sphere, the angelic world, watered by 4 mystical streams of life. After his banishment from paradise, Adam alighted on the island of Ceylon, and this spot is sacred to certain Hindu sects who recognize the old island of Lanka, once presumably connected with the mainland by a bridge, as the actual site of the Garden of Eden from which the human race migrated. According to the Arabian Nights, Sir Richard Burton's translation, Adam's footprint may still be seen on the top of a Ceylonese mountain. In the Islamic legends, Adam was later reunited with his wife, and after his death his body was brought to Jerusalem, subsequent to the flood, for burial by Melchizedek. See the Quran. The word ADM signifies a species or race, and only for lack of proper understanding has Adam been considered as an individual. As a macrocosm, Adam is the gigantic androgyne, even the demiurgus. As the microcosm, he is the chief production of the demiurgus, and within the nature of the microcosm the demiurgus established all the qualities and powers which he himself possessed. The demiurgus, however, did not possess immortality, and therefore could not bestow it upon Adam. According to legend, the demiurgus strove to keep man from learning the incompleteness of his maker. The Adamic man consequently partook of the qualities and characteristics of the angels, who were the ministers of the demiurgus. It was affirmed by the Gnostic Christians that the redemption of humanity was assured through the descent of Nous, universal mind, who was a great spiritual being superior to the demiurgus, and who, entering into the constitution of man, conferred conscious immortality upon the demiurgic fabrications. That phallic symbolism occupies an important place in early Jewish mysticism is indisputable. Hargrave Jennings sees in the figure of Adam a type of the lingam of Shiva, which was a stone representative of the creative power of the world generator. In Gregory's works, writes Jennings, is a passage to the effect that Noah daily prayed in the ark before the body of Adam, i.e. before the phallus, Adam being the primitive phallus, great procreator of the human race. It may possibly seem strange, he says, that this orison should be daily said before the body of Adam. But it is a most confessed tradition among the Eastern men that Adam was commanded by God that his dead body should be kept above ground till a fullness of time should come to commit it to the middle of the earth by a priest of the Most High God. This means Mount Moriah, the Meru of India. This body of Adam was embalmed and transmitted from father to son, till at last it was delivered up by Lamech into the hands of Noah. See phallicism. This interpretation somewhat clarifies the Kabbalistic assertion that in the first Adam were contained all the souls of the Israelites. See Sod. Though according to the Aurea Legenda, Adam was buried with the 3 seeds of the tree of knowledge in his mouth, it should be borne in mind that apparently conflicting myths were often woven around a single individual. One of the profound mysteries of Kabbalism is that set forth in the Notarikon, based upon the letters of the name Adam, ADM. These 3 letters form the initials of the names Adam, David, and the Messiah, and these 3 personalities were said to contain one soul. As this soul represents the world soul of humanity, Adam signifies the involving soul, the Messiah the evolving soul, and David that condition of the soul termed epigenesis. In common with certain philosophic institutions of Asia, the Jewish mysteries contained a strange doctrine concerning the shadows of the gods. Gazing down into the abyss, the Elohim beheld their own shadows, and from these shadows patterned the inferior creation. In the dramatic representation of the creation of man in the mysteries, writes the anonymous master of Balliol College, the Alim, Elohim, were represented by men who, when sculpturing the form of an Adamite being, of a man, traced the outline of it on their own shadow, or modeled it on their own shadow traced on the wall. This is how the art of drawing originated in Egypt, and the hieroglyphic figures carved on the Egyptian monuments have so little relief that they still resemble a shadow. In the ritualism of the early Jewish mysteries, the pageantry of creation was enacted, the various actors impersonating the creative agencies. The red dirt from which the Adamic man was fashioned may signify fire, particularly since Adam is related to the Yod, or fire flame, which is the first letter of the sacred name Jehovah. In John 2:20, it is written that the temple was 46 years in the building, a statement in which St. Augustine sees a secret and sacred gematria, for according to the Greek philosophy of numbers, the numerical value of the name Adam is 46. Adam thus becomes the type of the temple, for the house of God-like primitive man was a microcosm or epitome of the universe. In the mysteries, Adam is accredited with having the peculiar power of spiritual generation. Instead of reproducing his kind by the physical generative processes, he caused to issue from himself, or more correctly to be reflected upon substance, a shadow of himself. This shadow he then ensouled, and it became a living creature. These shadows, however, remain only as long as the original figure of which they are the reflections endures. For with the removal of the original, the host of likenesses vanish with it. Herein is the key to the allegorical creation of Eve out of the side of Adam. For Adam, representative of the idea or pattern, is reflected into the material universe as a multitude of ensouled images, which collectively are designated Eve. According to another theory, the division of the sexes took place in the archetypal sphere. Hence the shadows in the lower world were divided into two classes, consistent with the orders established in the archetype. In the apparently incomprehensible attraction of one sex for the other, Plato recognized a cosmic urge toward reunion of the severed halves of this archetypal being. Exactly what is to be inferred by the division of the sexes as symbolically described in Genesis is a much debated question. That man was primarily androgynous is quite universally conceded, and it is a reasonable presumption that he will ultimately regain this bisexual state. As to the manner in which this will be accomplished, two opinions are advanced. One school of thought affirms that the human soul was actually divided into two parts, male and female, and that man remains an unperfected creature until these parts are reunited through the emotion which man calls love. From this concept has grown the much-abused doctrine of soulmates, who must quest through the ages until the complementary part of each severed soul is discovered. The modern concept of marriage is to a certain degree founded upon this ideal. According to the other school, the so-called division of the sexes resulted from suppression of one pole of the androgynous being, in order that the vital energies manifesting through it might be diverted to development of the rational faculties. From this point of view, man is still actually androgynous and spiritually complete, but in the material world the feminine part of man's nature and the masculine part of woman's nature are quiescent. Through spiritual unfoldment and knowledge imparted by the mysteries, however, the latent element in each nature is gradually brought into activity, and ultimately, the human being thus regains sexual equilibrium. By this theory, woman is elevated from the position of being man's errant part to one of complete equality. From this point of view, marriage is regarded as a companionship in which two complete individualities manifesting opposite polarities are brought into association, that each may thereby awaken the qualities latent in the other, and thus assist in the attainment of individual completeness. The first theory may be said to regard marriage as an end, the second as a means to an end. The deeper schools of philosophy have leaned toward the latter as more adequately acknowledging the infinite potentialities of divine completeness in both aspects of creation. The Christian Church is fundamentally opposed to the theory of marriage, claiming that the highest degree of spirituality is achievable only by those preserving the virginal state. This concept seemingly originated among certain sects of the early Gnostic Christians, who taught that to propagate the human species was to increase and perpetuate the power of the demiurges. For the lower world was looked upon as an evil fabrication created to ensnare the souls of all born into it. Hence it was a crime to assist in bringing souls to earth. When, therefore, the unfortunate father or mother shall stand before the final tribunal, all their offspring will also appear and accuse them of being the cause of those miseries attendant upon physical existence. This view is strengthened by the allegory of Adam and Eve, whose sin through which humanity has been brought low is universally admitted to have been concerned with the mystery of generation. Mankind, owing to Father Adam its physical existence, regards its progenitor as the primary cause of its misery. And in the judgment day, rising up as a mighty progeny, will accuse its common paternal ancestor. Those Gnostic sects maintaining a more rational attitude on the subject declared the very existence of the lower worlds to signify that the Supreme Creator had a definite purpose in their creation. To doubt his judgment was, therefore, a grievous error. The Church, however, seemingly arrogated to itself the astonishing prerogative of correcting God in this respect, for wherever possible it continued to impose celibacy, a practice resulting in an alarming number of neurotics. In the mysteries, celibacy is reserved for those who have reached a certain degree of spiritual unfoldment. When advocated for the mass of unenlightened humanity, however, it becomes a dangerous heresy, fatal alike to both religion and philosophy. As Christendom in its fanaticism has blamed every individual Jew for the crucifixion of Jesus, so with equal consistency it has maligned every member of the feminine sex. In Vindication of Eve, philosophy claims that the allegory signifies merely that man is tempted by his emotions to depart from the sure path of reason. Many of the early church fathers sought to establish a direct relationship between Adam and Christ, thereby obviously discounting the extremely sinful nature of man's common ancestor, since it is quite certain that when St. Augustine likens Adam to Christ and Eve to the Church, he does not intend to brand the latter institution as the direct cause of the fall of man. For some inexplicable reason, however, religion has ever regarded intellectualism, in fact every form of knowledge, as fatal to man's spiritual growth. The Ignaratine friars are an outstanding example of this attitude. In this ritualistic drama, possibly derived from the Egyptians, Adam, banished from the Garden of Eden, represents man philosophically exiled from the sphere of truth. Through wisdom he redeems himself. The Garden of Eden represents the house of the mysteries, see the vision of Enoch, in the midst of which grew both the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Man, the banished Adam, seeks to pass from the outer court of the sanctuary, the exterior universe, into the sanctum sanctorum. But before him rises a vast creature armed with a flashing sword, that moving slowly but continually, sweeps clear a wide circle, and through this ring pass not, the Adamic man cannot break. The cherubim address the seeker thus: Man, thou art dust, and to dust thou shalt return. Thou wert fashioned by the builder of forms. Thou belongest to the sphere of form, and the breath that was breathed into thy soul was the breath of form, and like a flame it shall flicker out. More than thou art, thou canst not be. Thou art a denizen of the outer world, and it is forbidden thee to enter this inner place. And the Adam replies, Many times have I stood within this courtyard, and begged admission to my father's house, and thou hast refused it me, and sent me back to wander in darkness. True it is that I was fashioned out of the dirt, and that my Maker could not confer upon me the boon of immortality. But no more shalt thou send me away, for, wandering in the darkness, I have discovered that the Almighty hath decreed my salvation, because he hath sent out of the most hidden mystery his only begotten, who didst take upon himself the world fashioned by the demiurges. Upon the elements of that world was he crucified, and from him hath poured forth the blood of my salvation. And God, entering into his creation, hath quickened it, and established therein a road that leadeth to himself. While my Maker could not give me immortality, immortality was inherent in the very dust of which I was composed. For before the world was fabricated, and before the demiurgus became the regent of nature, the eternal life had impressed itself upon the face of cosmos. This is its sign, the cross. Do you now deny me entrance, I who have at last learned the mystery of myself? And the voice replies, He who is aware is. Behold. Gazing about him, Adam finds himself in a radiant place, in the midst of which stands a tree with flashing jewels for fruit, and entwined about its trunk a flaming winged serpent, crowned with a diadem of stars. It was the voice of the serpent that had spoken. Who art thou? Demands the Adam. I, the serpent answers, am Satan who was stoned. I am the adversary, the Lord who is against you, the one who pleads for your destruction before the eternal tribunal. I was your enemy upon the day that you were formed. I have led you into temptation. I have delivered you into the hands of evil. I have maligned you. I have striven ever to achieve your undoing. I am the guardian of the tree of knowledge, and I have sworn that none whom I can lead astray shall partake of its fruits. The Adam replies, For uncounted ages have I been thy servant. In my ignorance I listened to thy words, and they led me into paths of sorrow. Thou hast placed in my mind dreams of power, and when I struggled to realize those dreams, they brought me naught but pain. Thou hast sowed in me the seeds of desire, and when I lusted after the things of the flesh, agony was my only wreck. Thou hast sent me false prophets and false reasoning, and when I strove to grasp the magnitude of truth, I found thy laws were false, and only dismay rewarded my strivings. I am done with thee forever, O artful spirit. I have tired of thy world of illusions. No longer will I labor in thy vineyards of iniquity. Get thee behind me, tempter, and the host of thy temptations. There is no happiness, no peace, no good, no future in the doctrines of selfishness, hate, and passion preached by thee. All these things do I cast aside. Renounced is thy rule forever. And the serpent makes answer, Behold, O Adam, the nature of thy adversary. The serpent disappears in a blinding sunburst of radiance, and in its place stands an angel resplendent in shining golden garments, with great scarlet wings that spread from one corner of the heavens to the other. Dismayed and awestruck, the Adam falls before the divine creature. I am the Lord who is against thee, and thus accomplishes thy salvation, continues the voice. Thou hast hated me, but through the ages yet to be, thou shalt bless me. For I have led thee out of the sphere of the demiurgus. I have turned thee against the illusion of worldliness. I have weaned thee of desire. I have awakened in thy soul the immortality of which I myself partake. Follow me, O Adam, for I am the way, the life, and the truth. Analysis of